And then, you find the orange caps, you find the cotton swabs, you find the needles, you find, just evidence because they're just so unaware of what they're doing, just doing the act, that they leave everything behind. Hi, I'm Anna Sapka, and I am the mom of a heroin overdose. My son Timothy, forever 34, died November 8th, 2016. I am presently doing this to help with advocating for heroin awareness. Tim was born February 2nd, 1982, so there's a lot of twos there. I don't know if y'all remember the book, Care Bear book, it was called The Trouble with Timothy. And I always said that was my Tim, The Trouble with Timothy. He was born posterior, so he had always been a pain in my butt. And he was an amazingly talented guitarist, musician, made his own songs. As a child, very active. As a teen, very, I guess I want to just say troubled. And as an adult, even more so troubled. Heroin took over his life. I'm going to say it was probably in grade school. There was the DARE program, and there were some issues there, and not that it was a bad program or anything, but I can remember Tim told the DARE officer that he would rather jump off the Empire State Building than take drugs. Felt that there was more psychological issues with Timothy, like I was just trying to address why he didn't want to go to school, why he, wanted to just wander around town and be with his friends and this and that. We were flooded out, and my neighbor had my son stayed home from school that next day and was helping the neighbors, and they introduced him to alcohol. And I feel that at that point, from that time, he just thought, well, this feels good, And I don't exactly know when he got into the drugs. I know he was doing opiates because it changed the way that he felt. He felt better. He felt alive. He felt, creative in his music. He felt like he could keep going. And he used the pills, and I was pretty much aware of that because I could find evidence of snorting and this and that, and I never found any evidence of needles until probably 3 years prior to his death. And then you find the orange caps, you find the cotton swabs, you find the needles, you find, just evidence because they're just so unaware of what they're doing, just doing the act, that they leave everything behind for you to clean up after. I know with Tim, I knew he was high when, he'd come in and he'd be slurring his words, or he'd be, or on the other hand, when he didn't have his drug, when he was dope sick. You have kids that are sleeping constantly, or just, looking for an excuse not to involve themselves in the world. They might be dope sick, and that's all part of this too. And that's usually when they go seeking, and that might be when they find the drug that has laced or too strong for their system, and end up in death. I started getting really angry. I had described once before to several people that I was the asshole mom. I was tired of it. I was tired of the stealing. I was tired of the, lying. I was tired of not knowing where he was or whether he was safe. And I gave up. I felt that it had to come from him to get clean and to, go somewhere and get help, which he did. And a lot of times my feeling, my thought process now is, I remember hearing a story about a gentleman who slept under the bridge with his daughter, to help with keeping her alive. And I guess a lot of me wishes that I had done a whole lot more, that I had been there a whole lot more. I always told him I was there, but it didn't matter because the drug was so much more powerful than my love. And I would have been there. It's kind of like the never-ending story. You have to hope and you have to pray that they choose to let this be their last time to drug. I myself don't know the powerful effect of what the feeling was, or his, brain wanting more and more, and his inability to stop. Tim was a year clean and in rehab, and he smoked a cigarette, set off all the alarms in the rehab, and was kicked out. Went to a motel, hoping to get into a halfway house, and I sent him money for a phone, which I'm glad I did that because I have messages from him from that entire evening. Hi mom, hi mom, it's Tim. That's what he always said. And the next morning he was found dead. He had used some of the money, and I always felt guilt over that, but I don't know why I felt guilty, because I, was always the enabler who sent money, who did this, who did that, and, always trying to fix things until I stopped. And at the time, where else to go with that? I think parents of children who have died from heroin get a totally new perspective on what drug addiction is. Thank God, because there's just so much out there still that is unknown, and we need to do something. We need change. I wish I had known that, I wish I had known maybe at a younger age that his brain wasn't formed enough to figure this out. He did not have the ability to think this through, and the possibility of how much this drug changed his brain, his thinking, I wish I had known that. I wish I had known that in 5th grade when, he had answers for people that they didn't accept. When he was using, of course, anybody who's familiar with a drug addict will usually go to the parent that will give them the money, or, take care of them in the best way that they can twist and turn and take advantage of. Timothy would usually come home, at one point or another, or call me and let me know what was going on. Some of the stories are horrendous. They're just nightmares to me now. I can remember him being in the house, and when I really knew things were horrid was when he broke down my back door. He came into the house. He was just walking around oblivious to anything that was going on. I had never seen his mind so out of control, to the point where there was a telephone on a newspaper sitting on the floor, and he'd pick it up and talk to somebody on the phone. And at that point, because he had broken into my house, I called the police and had him arrested. And that's pretty much where I took the turn of no longer helping or condoning the behavior or the situation. I felt my safety was in jeopardy at that point. It's very difficult. That's when I said I became the asshole parent. It's almost like you have to be, turn yourself away from that individual. I no longer want you in my life as long as you're using. And if I could go back and say, I want you in my life, all I have is a picture, a photograph, I have ashes, that's it. Very much at peace with it because I was aware. I can remember myself saying a long time ago, death has to be better than this. And I didn't mean that. I didn't mean for, I didn't want him to die. But I know he's at peace. I know he's no longer suffering. I know he's no longer using. And I find, I call it my sanctuary. I mean, my mom can tell you I can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm out gardening and doing yard work sometimes until 9 o'clock at night. If there were 24 hours of daylight, I would be out there. And I'm out there and I'll sit and I'll have my cigarette and I look at the sky knowing that he's, hopefully up there. I want, if one person could, find some sort of healing or recovery or even the first steps of getting away from using, I just want people to be aware that there is help out there. There's so many availabilities now for us to help individuals. I've made myself available to anybody. If you need a ride or you just want to talk or you just, if you need a resource or whatever, give me a call. Let me know. I'll be there, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Give these kids so many chances that you want to believe that they're clean and they're doing what they say they're doing, and it's really it's a pretty good act. It's a tough life, for all of us. Many consequences, court, money, financially. You start seeing things missing around your house, or your credit card's gone, or your wallet's gone, or they're rifling through. I slept with my purse for 5 years underneath me, and he still got in it. So I knew my daughter always had a drinking problem, but when my son died, her brother, who was her best friend, they hadn't spoken for a long time, and we were supposed to get together as a family that weekend with Tim and Martha, making reconciliation with Tim. Her alcoholism increased. It affected her deeply, affected her 4 children deeply. My mom has been affected. She had allowed Timothy for a short period of time to live here, and he used in her home. Do anything you can to seek help. I know that doing everything you can to try to save that person isn't going to work. They need to know you love them, they need to know that you're there, and they need to know that there is help available out there. You can't do it on your own. I'm telling you, you can't do it on your own. When we had Tim's memorial, one of the greatest things that there was any of the money that we had got from we had like a raffle, and we had a beautiful service that day. Money was used to buy guitars for anybody who was in recovery, and we gave one guitar to the church. It was the city church of Batavia that Tim was in their band that they had for worship. Another guitar went to the rehab that he was at in Batavia, and another guitar went to his girlfriend who was in recovery, and we gave one to a kid in school who didn't have one. Of course he wasn't in recovery, but it was just somebody who was in need, and this gift of giving helped us. His counselor, who could not talk to me, loved Timothy, and then she sent me a short little clip on Facebook where somebody was playing the guitar we had given to the rehab at one of their tabling events that they were having, and she broke down crying to me when I had given her the guitar, and it was the first time that anybody truly was honest with me and said my son was hardcore. My son would never have made it. And I knew that. I knew in my hearts of hearts, that Timothy ultimately would die, because there was no answer for him. The drug was his choice, and I don't know, it hurt. It hurt that give birth to this child, and then later on in life they want nothing to do with you because you're trying to take away their livelihood. Because of the stigma attached, so many people are unwilling to seek out help. So many parents don't want anyone else knowing, that their child is addicted and using and, possibly selling, or, it doesn't matter. You can be black, you can be white, you can be a millionaire, you can be anyone's child, you can be anyone's grandparent. You don't know who's using, I mean, the stigma attached it has to change. It has to, and changing it by saying it's okay. It's okay. It's okay that you're using. It's okay that you're an addict. It's okay. We just want you to be aware of what this can do to you, your family, and the world around you. And let's see what we can do to help. I think just, knowing people that my son was friends with, the one thing that I did immediately after his death is people that I just despised because they were his friends and using, and I knew that I became friends with on Facebook. Just spread the word about what I felt and what I was doing, and I'm here if you need help, if you need to talk. I met a young lady just recently who was really struggling because of the system, and she is presently not using any drugs or anything, but struggling because of the system that she got herself involved with, drugs, probation, whatever else. And, just kind of guided her to go somewhere else to talk with somebody. And the woman that I think it was ACBC that I had sent her to the Cody program, talk to somebody. And another woman took her to a women's group and has involved her in some community things that are a little bit more positive, because the whole negative feel around this is, it's enough to put anybody down. It's... if you've been involved with the law, you sometimes feel there's no way out. Everybody should be trained in Narcan. My mom hasn't been trained. She should be. I have a kit, in my purse, and everybody I know, I tell, go get some training. And you do have to go through somebody who trains to do that, just so that you get the knowledge of how to use the kit. And they've changed it 3 times since they started doing it, from syringe to nasal, and now it's a little pump thing, right? It's not the whole thing that you got to put together. It's real easy to learn how to use one, and can save many, many lives. There's a stigma there because there's people that feel that, well, if you Narcan them once, you might get called back to that same person 3 days in a row, but they're still alive. You look at your child and they're truly suffering. Withdrawal is incredibly painful and incredibly hard to watch. I can remember a time when a family member would be willing to go and get drugs for Timothy so that he could get through that period of dope sickness without having to seek any medical attention or anything, because certainly he didn't want to go to the hospital and say, I'm, withdrawing from drugs. He'd rather have the drug. And I guess, in hindsight, through that dope sickness, I can remember, like I said, working in the jail and stuff, we use things like Vistarol, which is pretty much like a Benadryl. You can, I know that there were times that I gave Timothy a Benadryl or something just so that he would go to sleep and not be hurting so badly. But in all actuality, the user is going to want the drug. They're not going to want you to fix what's going on. So if you see your child in this state, my suggestion is to get medical help, because it's not fun to watch. It's not an easy thing to see. A lot of people try to get clean by, going through this all alone. And it's like I said, you don't have to be alone. There's help. There's help out there, and it's available, and just go somewhere. Go down to Trinity Casa. There's ACBC in Binghamton. Go and, say, I've been using, I'm sick, I'm tired, and, somebody will give you an answer. Whether you choose to use it or not is entirely up to you. I don't know how I could have done anything differently because I didn't know any differently. And education in this is so, so important for people to know what happens and where this drug will lead them, regardless of, whether they're into the shooting up or not. If you're aware that your child is using, something needs to be done. Something needs to be said. Help needs to be looked for. This could be you. This could be your kid. This could be your mom. I said, you just have to realize that this is something this is the reality of the world here we're in today. You need to learn how to save somebody's life. You're a paramedic, okay? If somebody was bleeding, you'd stop that bleed. If somebody was having a heart attack, you'd defibrillate. So they're overdosing, give them some Narcan, bring them back, maybe they'd be the next person that went into recovery.